Hare Krishna, Danvat Pranam. Welcome everyone to online get together. Today His Grace Aksara Goddess Prabhuji will be giving his transcendental words of wisdom on Yogendra Katha. Hare Krishna. Welcome Prabhuji.
हरे कृष्ण माता जी।
कैमरा ऑन कर लीजिए प्रभुजी।
हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण। धन्यवाद प्रणाम प्रभुजी।
मंगलाचरण।
मंगलाचरण। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीर्यते। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। नमो पंकजनाभये नमो पंकजमालिने नमो पंकजनेत्राय नमस्ते पंकजांग्री। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम अज्ञानं तिमिरध्याक्ष ज्ञानं जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदं मह्यं ददाति स पदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवां च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगण रघुनाथं वितं तं साधवेतं सावधूतं परिजनं सहित कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखावितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितनाम पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। श्री जगन्नाथ प्रणाम मंत्र बोलेंगे। नीलाचल निवासाय नित्याय परमात्माने बलभद्र सुभद्राभ्याम जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। गुरुवे गौर चंद्राय राधिकाय तदालय कृष्णाय कृष्ण भक्ताय तदभक्ताय नमो नमः। मैं श्रील गुरुदेव श्रील चैतन्य महाप्रभु श्रीमती राधा रानी श्री वृंदावन धाम भगवान श्री कृष्ण के भक्तों और भगवान कृष्ण के भक्तों को सादर प्रणाम करता हूँ। जगत गुरु शील प्रभुपाद की जय। श्री श्री राधा रस बिहारी भगवान की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताई की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान की जय। राम दरबार की जय। संवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। आप सभी का ऑनलाइन गेट टुगेदर क्लास में फिर से एक बार स्वागत है। और आज हमारी कथा हम नव योगेंद्र के बारे में, जहाँ से हमने 10वें चैप्टर तक पूरा किया था, उसको हम आगे लेके चलते हैं।
कैंटो 11
कैंटो 11
चैप्टर 11
कैंटो 11 पार्ट 1 चैप्टर 10।
चैप्टर
नौ
10।
तक हमने चैप्टर 10।
हाँ, और श्लोक
यहाँ
नंबर 1 से
श्लोक
स्टार्ट होएगा।
1 से स्टार्ट होगा।
हाँ तो ठीक है, तो पहले समरी बताएंगे।
हाँ, पहले समरी बताता हूँ इस चैप्टर के बारे में क्या कहते हैं।
हाँ
तो प्रभु जी फिर से एक बार सबको याद दिलाता हूँ कि सबकी मेमोरी के लिए हमको जरा मुंह पाठ हो जाए कि ये नव योगेंद्र के नाम क्या है और राजा ने क्या प्रश्न पूछे थे, वो हमारा जानने का एक फर्ज रहता है। तो बार बार भी याद करने के ऊपर भी हमको ये याद नहीं होता है। तो ये चैप्टर 2 के अंदर पूछा गया है, नव भवान महाभाग मुनयो अर्थ संसिनहम स्मरणवत्वात रसना आत्मविद्या विशारदा कवीर हर विरंतिक अंतरिक्ष प्रबुद्ध पिपलायन आविर्होत्र अर्थ द्रुमिल चमस कर भजन। The 9 remaining sons of Rusab were greatly fortunate sages who worked vigorously to spread knowledge of the absolute truth. They wandered about naked and very well versed in spiritual science. Their names were Kavi, Havir, Antariksha, Prabudha, Pipalayan, Avirhotra, Drumila, Chamasa, and Karbhajan. Nimi, the king of Videha, asked the following 9 questions of the 9 Yogendras, the saintly sons of Rusabha. Question number 1, what is the highest good? इसका आंसर बताया गया है श्रीमद् भागवतम के चैप्टर 2 में वर्स नंबर 30 में बताया गया है। What are the religious principles? That is dharma, natural proclivities, swabhava, behavior, achara, speech, vakya, and outward symptoms, lakshana of a Bhagavata, a Vaishnava devotee of the Lord. उसका आंसर इसी चैप्टर के टेक्स्ट नंबर 44 में दिया गया है। What is the external energy of Vishnu, the Supreme Lord? इसका आंसर चैप्टर नंबर 3 वर्स नंबर 1 में दिया गया है। How can one become dissociated from this Maya? इसका आंसर 3.17 में दिया गया है। इसी स्कंद में कैंटो 11 में ही बदल दिया गया है सबका आंसर। What is the true identity of ब्रह्मन? उसका आंसर 3.34 में दिया गया है। What are the 3 types of karma? Namely, karma based on the enjoyment of the fruits of work, karma offered to the Supreme Lord, and कर्मिया। इसका आंसर 3.4 में दिया गया है। What are the various pastimes of the various incarnations of God? इसका आंसर 4.1 में दिया गया है। What is the aim of destination of one who is against the Supreme Lord and devoid of bhakti, in other words, a non-devotee? उसका आंसर इस चैप्टर के 5वें अध्याय में श्लोक संख्या 1 में दिया गया है। Question number 9. What are the respective colors, forms, and names of the 4 Yuga Avtaras, the 4 incarnations of the Supreme Lord who appear in the 4 ages? And what is the process of worshipping each of them? Uska answer, chapter number 5, verse number 19. The transcendental answer to these inquiries were given by the great devotees Kavi, Havir, Antariksha, Prabhuda, Pipalayan, Avirhotra, Drumila, Chamasa, and Karbanam. These 9 Paramahansa answered the 9 questions, each in turn, in the following verses. तो वर्सेस तो 2.3343 है पहला, दूसरा है 2.45 to 55, तीसरा है 3.3 to 16। ये हमको भागवतम का 11 कैंटो निकालेंगे तो उसमें मालूम पड़ेगा ये आंसर्स कहाँ पर है। अब हम सीधे चलते हैं चैप्टर 10, द नेचर ऑफ फ्रूटिव एक्टिविटी। कुदरत का फ्रूटिव एक्टिविटी क्या है? इन दिस चैप्टर लॉर्ड श्री कृष्णा refutes the philosophy of the followers of Jaimini and describes to Uddhava how the spirit soul bound within the material body can develop pure transcendental knowledge. The Vaishnava, or one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu, should observe the rules and regulations found in the Pancharatra and other revealed scriptures. According to his own natural qualities and work, he should follow the code of Varnashramam in a spirit free from motivation. The so-called knowledge received through one's material senses, mind and intelligence is as useless as the dreams experienced by a sleeping person attached to the sense gratification. Therefore, one should give up work performed for sense gratification and accept work as a matter of duty. When one has come to understand something of the truth of the self, he should give up material work performed out of duty and simply engage himself in the service of the bona fide spiritual master, who is the manifest representative of the personality of Godhead. The servant of the spiritual master should have very firm affection for his guru, should be anxious to receive from him knowledge of the absolute truth, and should be devoid of envy and the tendency to talk nonsense. The soul is distinct from the gross and subtle material bodies. The spirit soul who has entered into material body accepts bodily functions according to the reactions of his own past activities. Therefore, only the bona fide transcendental spiritual master is capable of demonstrating pure knowledge of the self. The followers of Jaimini and other atheistic philosophers accept regulated material work as the purpose of life. But Krishna refused this by explaining that the embodied soul who has come into contact with segmented material time takes up upon himself a perpetual chain of births and deaths and is therefore forced to suffer the consequent happiness and distress. In this way, there is no possibility that one who is attached to the fruits of this material work can achieve any substantial goal in life. The pleasures of heaven and other destinations which are achieved by sacrificial rituals can be experienced for only a short time. After one's enjoyment is finished, one must return to this mortal sphere to partake of lamentation and suffering. On the path of materialism, there is certainly no uninterrupted or natural happiness. अभी टेस्ट वन से हम चालू करेंगे. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, taking full shelter in me, with the mind carefully fixed in the devotional service of the Lord, as spoken by me, one should live without personal desires and practice the social and occupational system called Varnashram. A purified soul should see that because the conditioned soul who are dedicated to sense gratification have falsely accepted the object of sense pleasure as truth. All of their endeavors are doomed to failure. One who is sleeping may see many objects of sense gratification in a dream, but such pleasurable things are merely creation of the mind and are thus ultimately useless. Similarly, the living entity who is asleep to his spiritual identity also sees many sense objects, but these innumerable objects of temporary gratification are creation of the Lord's illusory potency and have no permanent existence. One who meditates upon them, impelled by the senses, uselessly engages his intelligence. One who has fixed me within his mind as the goal of the life should give up activities based on the sense gratification and should instead execute work governed by the regulative principle for advancement. When, however, one is fully engaged in searching out the ultimate truth of the soul, one should not accept the scriptural injunctions governing fruitive activities. One who has accepted me as the supreme goal of life should strictly observe the scriptural injunction forbidding sinful activities and, as far as possible, should execute the injunction prescribing minor regulatory duties such as cleanliness. Ultimately, however, one should approach a bona fide spiritual master who is full in knowledge of me as I am, who is peaceful and who is spiritual elevation is not different from me. The servant of the disciple of the spiritual master should be free from false prestige, never considering himself to be the doer. He should be active and never lazy, and should give up all sense of proprietorship over the objects of the senses, including his wife, children, home, and society. He should be endowed with feelings of loving friendship toward a spiritual master and should never become deviated or bewildered. The servant or disciple should always desire advancement in spiritual understanding, should not envy anyone, and should always avoid useless conversation. One should see one's real self interest in life in all circumstances and should therefore remain detached from wife, children, home, land, relatives, friends, wealth, and so on. Just as fire, which burns and illuminates, is different from firewood, which is to be burned to give illumination. Similarly, the seer within the body, the self enlightened spirit soul, is different from the material body, which is to be illuminated by consciousness. Thus, the spirit soul and the body possess different characteristics and are separate entities. Just as fire may appear differently as dormant, manifest, weak, brilliant, and so on, according to the conditions of the fuel. Similarly, the spirit soul enters a material body and accepts particular bodily characteristics. The subtle and gross material bodies are created by the material modes of nature, which expand from the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Material existence occurs when the living entity falsely accepts the qualities of the gross and subtle body as being his own factual nature. The illusory state, however, can be destroyed by the real knowledge. Therefore, by the cultivation of knowledge, one should approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead situated within oneself. By understanding the Lord's pure transcendental existence, one should gradually give up the false vision of the material world as independent reality. The spiritual master can be compared to the lower kind kindling stick, the disciple to the upper kindling stick, and the instruction given by the guru to the third stick placed in between. The transcendental knowledge communicated from guru to disciple is compared to the fire arising from the contact of this, which burns the darkness of ignorance to ashes, bringing great happiness both to guru and disciple. By submissively hearing from an expert spiritual master, the expert disciple develops pure knowledge which repels the onslaught of material illusion arising from the three modes of material nature. Finally, this pure knowledge itself ceases just as fire ceases when the stock of fuel has been consumed. My dear Uddhava, I have thus explained to you perfect knowledge. There are philosophers, however, who challenge my conclusion. They state, they state that the natural position of the living entity is to engage in fruitive activity, and they see him as the angel of the happiness and unhappiness that accrue from his own work. According to this materialistic philosophy, the world, time, the revealed scripture, and the self are all variegated and eternal, existing as a perpetual flow of transformation. Knowledge, moreover, cannot be one or eternal. because it arises from the different and changing forms of object. Thus, knowledge itself is always subject to change. Even if you accept such a philosophy, my dear Uddhava, there will still be perpetual birth, death, old age, and disease, since all living entities must accept a material body subject to the influence of time. Although the performer of fruitive activities desires perpetual happiness, it is clearly observed that materialistic workers are often unhappy and only occasionally satisfied, thus proving that they are not independent or in control of their destiny. When a person is always under the superior control of another, how can he expect any valuable results from his own fruitive action? It is observed within the material world that sometimes even an intelligent person is not happy. Similarly, sometimes even a great fool is happy. The concept of becoming happy through expertly performing material activities is simply a useless exhibition of the false egoism.
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. Rameshwar Naik has joined.
Haribol, Haribol.
Rameshwar Naik, Haribol. Unmute, unmute, unmute. Yes.
Hare Krishna Bhuvya.
Hare Krishna. We are in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11.
Okay.
Canto 11, Chapter 10.
Okay.
Text number 18.
And now we are in text number 19.
11, 10, 19. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Yes, 11, 10, 19. So we are reading only without shloka, the translation.
Okay.
Okay, so you open it, you will understand better.
Okay. I will do that.
Okay. Got it? Canto 11, Chapter 10.
10, 11, 19.
19. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna Prabhuji.
Please continue.
अभी आप हर दिन आइए, सोमवार, बुधवार और शुक्रवार
डेली आना चाहता हूँ। हरे कृष्ण।
5 बजे से 6:30 बजे तक सोमवार और मंगल बुधवार, और शुक्रवार को 7:30 से 9, ये टाइमिंग है। टाइमिंग यू आर नोइंग वेरी वेल। आप ज्वाइंट होइए और हमको भी आपका भक्ति से कुछ न कुछ प्राप्त हो, ऐसी हम भगवान के चरणों में प्रार्थना करते हैं। यू आर वेलकम। तो
वो क्या होता है, जब अमेरिका में होता है तो रेगुलर होता है, इंडिया में होता है खराब हो जाता है।
अमेरिका में बाहर जाने का जगह ही नहीं, तो क्या करेंगे।
श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 11 चैप्टर 10 वर्स नंबर 19. Translation. Even if people know how to achieve happiness and avoid unhappiness, they still do not know the process by which death will not be able to exert its power over them. Death is not at all pleasing, and since everyone is exactly like a condemned man being led to the place of execution, what possible happiness can people derive from material objects or the gratification they provide? The material happiness of which we hear, such as promotion to heavenly planets for celestial enjoyment, is just like that material happiness we have already experienced. Both are polluted by jealousy, envy, decay, and death. Therefore, just as an attempt to raise crops become fruitless if there are many problems like crop disease, insect, plague, or drought, similarly they attempt to attain material happiness, either on earth or on the heavenly planet, is always fruitless because of innumerable obstacles. If one performs Vedic sacrifices and fruitive ritual act without any mistake or contamination, one will achieve a heavenly situation in the next life. But even these results which is only achieved by perfect performance of fruitive rituals, will be vanquished by time. Now hear of this. If on earth one performs sacrifice for the satisfaction of the demigods, he goes to the heavenly planets, where, just like a demigod, he enjoys all the heavenly pleasures he has earned by his performances. Having achieved the heavenly planets, the performer of ritualistic sacrifice travels in a glowing airplane, which he obtains as the result of his piety on earth, being glorified by songs sung by the Gandharvas and dressed in a wonderfully charming clothes. He enjoys life surrounded by heavenly goddesses, accompanied by heavenly women. The enjoyer of the fruits of sacrifice goes on pleasure rides in a wonderful airplane, which is decorated with circles of tinkling bells and which flies wherever he desires. Being relaxed, comfortable, and happy in the heavenly pleasures gardens, he does not consider that he is exhausting the fruits of his pity and will soon fall down to the material world. Until his pious results are used up, the performer of sacrifice enjoys life in the heavenly planets. When the pious results are exhausted, however, he falls down from the
हरे कृष्णा
pleasure garden.
प्रभु जी,
Hare Krishna.
एक बार
हाँ,
ये जरा रमेश नायक प्रभु जी वो पूछ रहे हैं, एक बार बता दो जरा कि कौन सा कहाँ से
बताया
रीडिंग कर
उनको,
रहे हैं। नहीं, वो दोबारा पूछ रहे हैं, वो उनको मिला नहीं, एक
दोबारा
बार
पूछ रहे
बता।
हैं.
और 10, 11, 19 था ना?
हाँ, 10, 11, 19 के बाद में आप ट्रांसलेशन
No,
नंबर अभी
no, 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 no.
11,
Canto number 11.
कैंटो नंबर
ओ
11.
वो 10 में चला गया।
11,
कैंटो
10, 19.
11
हाँ,
चैप्टर 10।
अच्छा, 19
हाँ
एंड श्लोका 19. अच्छा,
नहीं,
कैंटो
अभी
11
26 में है, अभी
चैप्टर
26
हाँ,
में
10
है. अभी
ओके
26,
और अभी
टेक्स्ट
वी
नंबर
आर इन
20.
26।
ओके, ठीक, ओके, ठीक, करेक्ट,
मिला प्रभु
करेक्ट,
जी?
ठीक, करेक्ट है अभी। हाँ, मिल
देखिए,
जाएगा। क्या पेरी चेंज करना होगा।
11, 10, 26.
वो उल्टा हो गया था उसका, 10, 11 में चला गया।
हाँ, होता है, होता है. हरे कृष्णा.
हरे कृष्णा। यस,
11, 10, 26.
11, 10,
Verse
26.
chapter number 26. Until his pious results.
ठीक,
मिल गया?
हाँ, मिल गया। 11, 10, 26 हो गया।
हाँ, चालू करें।
Until his pious results are used up. ठीक है प्रभु जी?
हाँ,
Until his pious results are used up, the performer of sacrifice enjoy life in the heavenly planets. When the pious results are exhausted, however, he falls down from the pleasure garden of heaven, being moved against his desire by the force of eternal time. If a human being is engaged in sinful, irreligious activities, either because of bad association or because of his failure to control his senses, then such a person will certainly develop a personality full of material desire. He thus becomes miserly toward others, greedy and always anxious to exploit the bodies of women. When the mind is so polluted, one becomes violent and aggressive, and without the authority of Vedic injunctions, slaughters innocent animal for sense gratification. Worshipping ghosts and spirits, the bewildered person falls fully into the grip of unauthorized activities and thus goes to hell, where he receives a material body infected by the darkest mode of nature. In such a degraded body, He unfortunately continues to perform inauspicious activities that greatly increases future unhappiness, and therefore he again accepts a similar material body. What possible happiness can there be for one who engages in activities inevitably terminating in death? In all planetary system, from the heavenly to the hellish, and for all the great demigods who live for 1000 yuga cycles, there is fear of me in my form of time. Even Brahma, who possesses the supreme life of span, even Brahma, who possesses the supreme lifespan of why come this so much? Three, three, this
बहुत डिफिकल्ट है.
बहुत डिफिकल्ट है इसको कैसा बोला. 31104 000 years is also afraid of me. रूपवती माता जी, इसको बताइए कैसे पढ़ने का.
ये किधर है? ये 3
नंबर 30.
30 वर्स नंबर 30 30.
इतना फास्ट चले गए आप लोग.
हाँ,
तो
हम लोग
प्रभु
तो
आप
अभी खाली
ऐसा करें,
ट्रांसलेशन.
जब भी दूसरे इसमें जाते हो ना श्लोका में,
हाँ,
तो सिर्फ नंबर अनाउंस करो. अभी 30, अभी 31,
ठीक है.
लाइक दैट.
अच्छा अभी
रूपवती
31.
माता
ओके
जी ये
ओके
बताइए जरा.
ठीक है.
हाँ.
अभी हाँ 31
ठीक
हो
है.
गया ना अभी शुरू.
नहीं 30 हो गया,
अच्छा
अभी
अभी
31 में जा रहे हैं.
31. सो प्रभु जी इसको कैसे पढ़ेंगे? 311,040 एकम दशक 100 हजार 10 311,40 डिफिकल्ट है, इसको गूगल में पूछना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, चलिए. कैंटो 11 चैप्टर 10 टेक्स्ट नंबर 31. ट्रांसलेशन. द मटेरियल सेंसेस क्रिएट मटेरियल एक्टिविटीज either pious or sinful, and the mode of nature set the material senses into motion. The living entity, being fully engaged by the material senses and mode of nature, experiences the various results of the fruitive work. अब 32 का ट्रांसलेशन पढ़ेंगे. As long as the living entity thinks that the mode of material nature have separate existence, he will be obliged to take birth in many different forms and will experience varieties of materialism. Therefore, the living entity remains completely dependent on fruitive activities under the mode of nature. The conditioned soul who remains dependent on fruitive activities under the material modes of nature will continue to fear me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, since I impose the results of one's fruitive activities. Those who accept the material concept of life, taking the variegatedness of the mode of nature to be factual, devote themselves to material enjoyment and are therefore always absorbed in a lamentation and grief. Text number 34, translation. When there is agitation and interaction of the material mode of nature, the living entities then describe me in a various ways, such as all-powerful time, the self, Vedic knowledge, the universe, one's own nature, religious ceremonies, and so on.
हरे
Text
कृष्णा
35.
प्रभु जी.
हाँ जी, हाँ जी,
हाँ,
बोलिए
वो
बोलिए
टेक्स्ट
माता.
नंबर 30 बोल रहे थे ना,
हाँ
उसमें वो जो नंबर है
हाँ,
उसको बोलेंगे 311 ट्रिलियन 40 बिलियन ईयर्स.
माता जी को व्हाट्सअप कर दो.
हाँ, या 31,10,040 करोड़.
हाँ
31,10,040 करोड़.
अच्छा अच्छा.
और ये मतलब लाइफ स्पैन हो गया 100 ब्रह्मा ईयर्स.
हाँ हाँ हाँ. 3,11,040 crores.
31
हाँ,
31 lakhs I think.
311 ट्रिलियन 40 बिलियन ईयर्स. और अगर बोलेंगे तो फिर ऐसे 31 लाख 10,040 करोड़.
अच्छा
ये
उसकी,
इजी रहेगा फॉर रिमेम्बरिंग.
नहीं उसकी जो
दिस
लाइफ
विल
है
बी
ना,
इजी.
ब्रह्मा की लाइफ जो है,
ठीक है, समझ गए.
एक दिन, उसका जो एक दिन है वो है 1000 चतुर्युग।
1000
चतुर्युग,
हाँ,
1000 चतुर्युग।
1000
उसको मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे 2 से, रात का,
हाँ,
दिन का, रात का,
दिन का
तो
रात का,
2000 हो गया एक दिन का।
एक दिन का,
उसको
हाँ,
मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे 365 से,
तो आएगा शायद
तो
ये।
365 इंटू 200, 2000 इंटू चतुर्युग,
चतुर्युग, यस,
लाइक दैट।
ऐसा
तो हो
ठीक है।
जाएगा 31,10,000 40 करोड़।
हाँ।
ये हमें पढ़ने में भी इतना वो लग रहा है और वो उतना हो जाता है।
पढ़ने में इतना तकलीफ होगा तो हमारा आगे का जीवन क्या होगा?
और वैसे
बरोबर
कंप्यूटर
है।
कंप्यूटर में करोड़ नहीं होता है, बिलियन बिलियन मिलियन और बिलियन होते हैं।
हाँ,
हाँ
ट्रिलियन
प्रभु जी,
ट्रिलियन ट्रिलियन
इत-
हो गया ना
इतना
फिर
तो
प्रभु जी।
ट्रिलियन,
311 ट्रिलियन ईयर्स।
यस।
311 ट्रिलियन ईयर्स।
इतना तो हमारा कॉलेज की पढ़ाई हुआ तब तक भी ये फिगर नहीं आया था। हाँ, समझे? इतना हमारा बीकॉम में फाइनल अकाउंट्स में हम बैलेंस शीट बनाते थे तो भी ये फिगर नहीं आता था क्या? ठीक है,
हाँ
महाराज
प्रभु,
जी।
चलिए।
प्रभु चलो 35।
चलिए 10 to 11 chapter 10 text number 35 translation. Sri Uddhava said, O my Lord, a living entity situated within the material body is surrounded by the mode of nature and the happiness and distress that are born of activities caused by these modes. How is it possible that he is not bound by this material encirclement? It may also be said that the living entity is ultimately transcendental and has nothing to do with the material world. Then how is he ever bound by material nature? Text number 36, 37 translation. O my Lord Achyuta, the same living entity is sometimes described as eternally conditioned and at other times as eternally liberated. I am not able to understand, therefore, the actual issues of the living entity. You, my Lord, are the best of those who are expert in answering philosophical questions. Please explain to me the symptoms by which one can tell the difference between a living entity who is eternally liberated and one who is eternally conditioned. In what very various ways would they remain situated, enjoy life, eat, evacuate, lie down, sit, or move about? Thus end the purport of the humble servant of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Nature of Fruity Activity. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
हरे
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna,
कृष्ण
Hare
कृष्ण हरे हरे हरे
Hare
राम
Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. अब हम चैप्टर 11 पर चलते हैं।
चलिए अभी थोड़ा ब्रीफ में बता दो 10 चैप्टर का ब्रीफ।
भी प्रभु जी तो बहुत लंबा है प्रभु जी, डिफिकल्ट है यार, इसके इतना तो पॉइंट मैंने लिखा भी नहीं है क्या, लेकिन
ऐसा ही
बढ़िया है
होता है,
प्रभु जी।
हमारी
प्रभु,
मेमोरी ऐसे ही है, आगे आगे बढ़ते
हमारी
जाते हैं,
मेमोरी
पीछे
ऐसी है।
भूलता जाता है।
यस यस, बढ़िया है, लेकिन इसका अपना जीवन के साथ में बहुत
एक्चुअली
ताल।
देयर इज अ डिस्कशन
हाँ
बिटवीन उद्धव
हाँ
and Krishna.
हाँ,
Krishna is speaking to Uddhav and telling him the
उदाहरण,
what is
हाँ
the difference between the soul and the
तो
body.
हाँ,
And Uddhav is asking
हम्म
how then both of them are united together
हम्म
and going through the happiness and the distresses.
हम्म,
So
हाँ,
from this you will find that how
हम्म,
Krishna has been explaining to Uddhav all
यस,
these things.
हाँ, कैसे कैसे उसके अंदर गुणात्मा है, मनुष्य का क्या गुणात्मा है और क्या करते हैं वो,
हाँ
एक्चुअली क्या करना चाहिए और क्या कर रहे हैं, उसका डिफरेंसेस बताया गया है इस चैप्टर में।
हाँ बराबर।
हर एक चीज में छोटी सी बात का भी बताया गया है,
हाँ
कि जैसे बोलते हैं कि वर्णाश्रम आश्रम क्या है, सोशल ऑक्यूपेशन क्या है, ये सब बताया गया हुआ है सब, कि हमको कैसे बिहेव करना चाहिए इस जन्म में, हम मनुष्य अवतार में आए हैं तो हमारी लाइफ स्टाइल कैसी होनी चाहिए। फ्रूटिव एक्टिविटी के नहीं लिए नहीं, नेचर ऑफ फ्रूटिव एक्टिविटी चैप्टर का नाम है। पर्सनल फ्रूटिव एक्टिविटी नहीं है। भगवान के प्रति हमारी फ्रूटिव एक्टिविटी क्या रहेगी वो उसके ऊपर ध्यान देना चाहिए हमको, कि भगवान के पास से हम क्या अच्छे फ्रूट ले सकते हैं। और भगवान और गुरु परंपरा, गुरु ने जो कहा, स्पिरिचुअल मास्टर ने जो कहा, उसके ऊपर हमारा सब मायने रखता है कि हमको स्पिरिचुअल मास्टर की बातें सुनकर उनके पास से जानने की कोशिश करना चाहिए। वो हमारे लिए हमारा नेचर ऑफ फ्रूटिव एक्टिविटी हो जाएगा। ऐसा इसका तात्पर्य हम कर सकते हैं।
बराबर। तो
ठीक है
ऐसे समझाएंगे ना तो अंजनी माता को बराबर समझ में आ जाएगा।
यस यस यस, ठीक है। आप थोड़ा थोड़ा हमको इंजेक्शन देते जाएंगे ना तो हम बढ़ेगा। अभी क्या है ऐसा। चलिए प्रभु जी,
ओके,
चैप्टर
गो टू
11 से
चैप्टर नंबर 11।
11, द सिस्टम ऑफ कंडीशन एंड लिबरेटेड लिविंग एंटिटीज। ठीक है, सिस्टम ऑफ कंडीशन एंड लिबरेटेड लिविंग एंटिटीज। In this chapter, Lord Sri Krishna describes to Uddhava the difference between conditioned and liberated living entities. The
इधर
characteristics
इधर
of
सुनो, एक मिनट इट इज 11.11 है ना अभी?
हाँ,
11.11
11.11 समरी।
समझ या चौक?
हाँ,
title
ओके
प्रभु
ओके
जी, the system of conditioned and liberated living entities. शुरुआत।
अच्छा ओके ओके ठीक है।
In this chapter, Lord Sri Krishna described to Uddhava the difference between conditioned and liberated living entities, the characteristic of saintly person, and the different aspect of the practice of devotional service. In the previous chapter, Uddhava had presented questions regarding conditioned and liberated soul. In his replies, the Almighty Lord Sri Krishna states that although the spirit soul is a part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, on account of his infinitesimal nature, he falls into contact with the material energy, which causes him to accept the covering designations of the mode of goodness, patience, and ignorance. Thus, the soul has been bound up since time immemorial. But when he achieves the shelter of pure devotional service, he becomes designated as eternally liberated. Transcendental knowledge is therefore the cause of the living entity's liberation, and ignorance is the cause of his bondage. Both knowledge and ignorance are produced by the Maya energy of Lord Sri Krishna and are his eternal potencies. The living entities who become attracted to the mode of nature are bewildered by false ego, which causes them to see themselves as the enjoyers of misery, confusion, happiness, distress, danger, and so on. In this way, they meditate upon such state of being, although in the real or spiritual world, these things do not exist. Both the jiva, individual soul, and the super soul resides within the same body. The difference between them is that the Almighty Super Soul, being fully cognizant, does not indulge in enjoying the fruits of material work, but remains simply as a witness. There, whereas the infinitesimal conditions jiva, being ignorant, suffer the consequences of his own work. The liberated jiva, in spite of being within a material body because of the remaining reaction of his past activities does not become disturbed by the happiness and suffering of the body. He sees such a body experiences in the same way that a person who has just awakened from a dream sees his dream experience. On the other hand, although the conditioned living entity is by nature not the enjoyer of the happiness and misery of the body, he imagines himself to be the enjoyer of his bodily experience, just as a person in a dream imagines his dream experience to be real. Just as the sun reflected upon water is not actually bound up in the water, and just as the air is not confined to some particular segment of the sky, similarly, a detached person takes advantage of his broad outlook on the world to cut off all his doubts with the sword of appropriate renunciation, yukta vairagya. Since his life force, senses, mind, and intelligence have no tendency to fix themselves on sense objects, he remains liberated. He remains liberated even while situated within the material body. Regardless of whether he is harassed or worshipped, he remains equipoised. He is therefore considered liberated even in this life. A liberated person has nothing to do with the pity and sin of this world, but rather sees everything equally. A self satisfied sage does not praise or condemn anyone. He does not speak uselessly to anyone and does not fix his mind or material thing. Rather, he is always merged in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in the eyes of fools, he seems to be a speechless, crazy person. Even if someone has studied or even taught all the different Vedic literatures, if he has not developed pure attraction to the service of the personality of Godhead, he has accomplished nothing beyond his own labor. One should study only those scriptures in which the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his enchanting pastimes, and the nectarian topics of his various incarnations are scientifically discussed. Thus, one gains the highest good fortune. However, by studying scripture other than this, one simply acquires misfortune. With full determination, one should properly understand the identity of the soul and give up false identification with this material body. He may then offer his heart at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, the reservoir of all love, the reservoir of all love and attain real peace. When the mind is carried away by the three modes of nature, it can no longer meditate properly on the transcendental supreme truth. After many lifetimes, faithful persons who have performed Vedic sacrifices for acquiring religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification finally engage in hearing, chanting, and constantly thinking of the Supreme Lord's all auspicious pastime, which purify the entire universe. Such persons then achieve the association of a bona fide spiritual master and the saintly devotees. After that, by the mercy of the spiritual master, they begin to follow the path set out by the standard authorities of spiritual life, the Mahajanas, and become actually perfect in realization of their own true identity. Having heard this instruction from Lord Krishna, Uddhava further desired to understand and characteristic of a factually saintly person and the different aspects of devotional practice. Lord Krishna replies that a real sadhu or Vaishnava is a qualified with the following characters. He is merciful, non-envious, always truthful, self-controlled, faultless, magnanimous, gentle, clean, non-possessive, helpful to all, peaceful, dependent on Krishna alone, free from lust, devoid of material endeavor, steady and control of the six enemies of the mind, moderate in eating, never bewildered, always respectful to others, never desirous of respect for himself, sober, compassionate, friendly, poetic, expert, and silent. The principal characteristic of sadhu is that he takes shelter of Krishna alone. One who engages exclusively in Krishna's service and understand him as the life limitless indwelling Lord who comprised eternity, knowledge, and bliss is the topmost devotee. The practice of devotional service include 64 kinds of activities. Among these are 1 to 6 seeing, touching, worshipping, serving, glorifying, and offering obeisances to the deity of the Lord and his pure devotees. 7. Developing attachment for the hearing, the chanting of the Lord's qualities, pastimes, and so on. 8. Remaining always in meditation upon the Lord. 9. Offering everything on one equire to the Lord. 10. Accepting oneself to be the Lord's servant. 11. Offering the Lord one's heart and soul. 12. Engaging in the glorification of the Lord's birth and activities. 13. Observing holidays related to the Lord. 14. Performing festival in the Lord's temple in the company of other devotees and with music, singing, and dancing. 15. Celebrating all varieties of yearly functions. 16. Offering foodstuffs to the Lord. 17. Taking initiation according to Vedas and Tantras. 18. Taking vows related to Lord. 19. Being eager to establish deities of the Lord. 20. Endeavoring either alone or in association with others in constructing for the service of the Lord vegetable and flower gardens, temple, cities, and so on. 21. Humbly cleansing the temple of the Lord. And 22. Rendering service to the Lord's house by painting it, washing it with water, and decorating it with auspicious design. After this, the process of worshipping the deity of the Supreme Lord is described in brief. Text 1, translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Uddhava, due to the influence of the material modes of nature which are under my control, the living entity is sometimes designated as conditioned and sometimes as liberated. In fact, however, the soul is never really bound up or liberated. And since I am the Supreme Lord of Maya, which is the cause of the modes of nature, I also am never to be considered liberated or in bondage. Just as a dream is merely a creation of one's intelligence but has no actual substance, similarly, material lamentation, illusion, happiness, distress, and the acceptance of the material body under the influence of Maya are all creation of my illusory energy. In other words, material existence has no essential reality. O Uddhava, both knowledge and ignorance, being products of Maya, are expansion of my potency. Both knowledge and ignorance are beginningless and perpetually award liberation and bondage to embodied living beings. O most intelligent Uddhava, the living entity called Jiva is a part and parcel of me, but due to ignorance, he has been suffering in material life bondage since time immemorial. By knowledge, however, he can be liberated. Thus, my dear Uddhava, in the same material body, we find opposing characteristics such as great happiness and misery. That is because both the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is eternally liberated, as well as the conditioned soul, are within the body. I shall now speak to you about their different characteristics. By chance, two birds have made a nest together in the same tree. The two birds are friends and are of similar nature. One of them, however, is eating the fruits of the tree, whereas the other, who does not eat the fruits, is in a superior position due to his potency. The bird who does not eat the fruits of the tree is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but who, by his omniscience, perfectly understands his own position and that of the conditioned living entity represented by the eating bird. That living entity, on the other hand, does not understand himself or the Lord. He is covered by ignorance and is thus called eternally conditioned, whereas the personality of Godhead, being full of perfect knowledge, is eternally liberated. One who is enlightened in self-realization, although living within the material body, sees himself as transcendental to the body, just as one who has arisen from a dream gives up the identification with the dream body. A foolish person, however, although not identical with his material body, but transcendental to it, thinks himself to be situated in the body, just as one who is dreaming sees himself as situated in an imaginary body. An enlightened person who is free from contamination of material desire does not consider himself to be the performer of bodily activities. Rather, he knows that in all such activities, it is only the senses, born of the modes of nature, that are contacting sense objects born of the same modes of nature. An unintelligent person situated within the body created by his previous fruitive activities think, I am the performer of action, bewildered by false ego. Such a foolish person is therefore bound up by fruitive activities, which are in fact carried out by the modes of nature. An enlightened person fixed in detachment engages his body in lying down, sitting, walking, bathing, seeing, touching, smelling, eating, hearing, and so on, but is never entangled by such activities. Indeed, remaining as a witness to all bodily functions, he merely engages his bodily sense with their objects and does not become entangled like an unintelligent person. Although the sky or space is the resting place of everything, the sky does not mix with anything, nor is it entangled. Similarly, the sun is not at all attached to the water in which it is reflected within innumerable reservoirs, and the mighty wind blowing everywhere is not affected by the innumerable aromas and atmospheres through which it passes. In the same way, a self-realized soul is completely detached from the material body and the material world around it. He is like a person who has awakened and arisen from a dream. With expert vision sharpened by detachment, the self-realized soul cuts all doubts to pieces through knowledge of the self and completely withdraws his consciousness from the expanse of material variety. A person is considered to be completely liberated from the gross and subtle material bodies when all the functions of his vital energy, senses, mind, and intelligence are performed without material desire. Such a person, although situated within the body, is not entangled. Sometimes, for no apparent reasons, one's body is attacked by cruel people or violent elements. At other times and in other place, one will suddenly be offered great respect or worship. One who becomes neither angry when attacked nor satisfied when worshipped is actually intelligent. A saintly sage sees with equal vision and therefore is not affected by that which is materially good or bad. Indeed, although he observes other performing good and bad work and speaking properly and improperly, the stage does not praise or citizens anyone. For the purpose of maintaining his body, a liberated sage should not act, speaking, or contemplate in terms of material body, material good or bad. Rather, he should be detached in all material circumstances and taking pleasure in self-love. He should wander about engaged in this liberated lifestyle, appearing like a retarded persons to outsiders. If through meticulous studying one becomes expert in reading Vedic literature, but makes no endeavor to fix one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one's endeavor is certainly like that of a man who works very hard to take care of cow that gives no milk. In other words, the fruit of one's laborious study of a Vedic knowledge will simply be the labor itself. There will be no other tangible results. My dear Uddhava, that man is certainly most miserable who takes care of a cow that gives no milk, an unchaste wife, a body totally dependent on others, useless children, or wealth not utilized for the right purpose. Similarly, One who studies Vedic knowledge, devoid of my glories, is also most miserable. My dear Uddhava, an intelligent person should never take to literatures that do not contain descriptions of my activities which purify the whole universe. Indeed, I create, maintain, and annihilate the entire material manifestation. Among all my pastimes incarnation, the most believed are Krishna and Balram. Any so-called knowledge that does not recognize these activities of mine is simply barren and is not acceptable to those who are actually intelligent. Coming to this conclusion of all knowledge, one should give up the false conception of material variety that one imposes upon the soul, and thus ceases one's material existence. The mind should be fixed on me, since I am all pervading. My dear Uddhava, if you are not able to free your mind from all material disturbance and thus absorb it completely on the spiritual platform, then perform all your activities as an offering to me without trying to enjoy the fruits. एक मिनट. My dear Uddhava, narrations of my pastimes and qualities are all auspicious and purify the entire universe. A faithful person who constantly hears, glorifies, and remembers such transcendental activities, who through dramatic performances relive my pastime, beginning with my appearance, and who takes full shelter to me, dedicating his glories, sensual and occupational activities for my satisfaction, certainly obtains unflinching devotional service to me, the eternal personality of Godhead. One who has obtained pure devotional service by association with my devotee, always engaged in worshipping me. Thus he very easily goes to my abode, which is revealed by my pure devotees. Sri Uddhava said, "My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, what type of person do you consider to be a true devotee? And what type of devotional service approved by great devotee as worthy of being offered to your Lordship? My dear ruler of the universal controller, O Lord of Vaikuntha and Almighty God of the universe, I am your devotee, and because I love you, I have no other shelter than you. Therefore, please explain this to me. My dear Lord, as the absolute truth, you are transcendental to material nature, and like the sky, you are never entangled in any way. Still, being controlled by your devotee's love, you accept many different forms, incarnating according to your devotee's desires. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Uddhava, a saintly person is merciful and never injures others. When, even if others are aggressive, he is tolerant and forgiving towards all living entities. His strength and meaning in life come from the truth itself. He is free from all envy and jealousy, and his mind is equal in material happiness and distress. Thus, he dedicates his time to work for the welfare of all others. His intelligence is never bewildered by material desire, and he has controlled his senses. His behavior is always pleasing, never harsh, and always exemplary, and he is free from possessiveness. He never endeavors in ordinary worldly activities, and he strictly controls his eating. He therefore always remains peaceful and steady. A saintly person is thoughtful and accept me as his only shelter. Such a person is very cautious in the execution of his duties and is never subject to superficial transformation, because he is steady and noble even in distressing situation. He has conquered over the six material qualities, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. He is free from all desire for prestige and offers honor to others. He is expert in receiving he is expert in reviving the Krishna consciousness of others and therefore never cheats anyone. Rather, he is well-wishing friend to all. Being most merciful, such a saintly person must be considered the most learned of men. He perfectly understands that the ordinary religious duties prescribed by me in various Vedic scriptures possesses favorable qualities that purify the performer. And he knows that neglect to such duties constitute a discrepancy in one's life. Having taken complete shelter at my lotus feet, however, a saintly person ultimately renounces such ordinary religious duties and worship me alone. He is thus considered to be the best among all living entities. My devotees may or may not know exactly what I am, who I am, and how I exist. But if they worship me with unalloyed love, then I consider them to be the best of devotees. My dear Uddhava, one can't give up false, false pride and prestige by engaging in the following devotional service. One may purify oneself by seeing, touching, worshipping, serving, and offering prayers of glorification and obeisances to my form as the deity and to my pure devotee. One should also glorify my transcendental qualities and activities here with love and faith the narration of my glories and constantly meditate on me. One should offer to me whatever one acquires and accepting oneself as my eternal servant. One should give up oneself completely to me. One should always discuss my birth and activities and enjoy life by participating in festivals such as Janmashtami, which glorify my pastime. In my temple, one should also participate in festivals and ceremonies by singing, dancing, playing musical instruments, and discussing me with other Vaishnavas. One should observe all the regularly celebrated annual festivals by attending ceremonies, pilgrimage, and making offering. One should also observe religious vows such as Ekadasi and take initiation by the procedures mentioned in the Vedas. Pancharatra, and other similar literature. One should faithfully and lovingly support the installation of my deity and individually or in cooperation with other. One should work for the construction of Krishna conscious temple and cities as well as flower gardens, fruit gardens, and special areas to celebrate my pastime. One should consider oneself to be my humble servant without duplicity and thus should help to clean the temple, which is my home. First, one should sweep and dust thoroughly, and then one should further cleanse with water and cow dung. Having dried the temple, one should sprinkle scented water and decorate the temple with mandalas. One should thus act just like my servant. A devotee should never advertise his devotional activities. Therefore, his service will not be caused of false pride. One should never use lamps that are offered to me for other purpose simply because there is a need of illumination. And similarly, one should never offer to me anything that has been offered to or used by other. Whatever is most desired by one within this material world and whatever is most dear to oneself, one should offer that very thing to me. Such an offering qualifies one for eternal life. O saintly Uddhava, please know that you may worship me in the sun, fire, brahmanas, cows, Vaishnavas, sky, wind, water, earth, individual soul, and all living entities. My dear Uddhava, one should worship me within the sun by chanting selected Vedic mantras and by performing worship and offering obeisances. One may worship me within fire by offering obeisances of ghee and one may worship me among the Brahmanas by respectfully receiving them as guests, even when uninvited. I can be worshipped within the cows by offering of grass and other suitable grains and paraphernalia for the pleasure and health of the cows. And one may worship me within the Vaishnava by offering loving friendship to them and honoring them in all respect. Through study meditation, I am worshipped within the inner space of the heart, and within the air, I can be worshipped by knowledge that pran, the life air, is the chief amongst elements. I am worshipped within water by offering of water itself, along with other elements such as flowers and tulsi leaves. And one may worship me within the earth by proper application of confidential seed mantra. One may worship me within the individual's living entity by offering food and other enjoyable substance. And one may worship me within all living entities by seeing the super soul within all of them, thus maintaining equal vision. Thus, in the previously mentioned places of worshipping and according to the processes I have described, one should meditate on my peaceful transcendental form with four arms holding a conch shell, Sudarshan disc, club, and lotus flower. In this way, one should worship me with fixed attention. One who has executed sacrificial performance and pious works for my satisfaction, and who thus worship me with fixed attention, offers unflinching devotional service unto me by the excellent quality of his service. Such a worshipper obtains realized knowledge of me. My dear Uddhava, I am personally the ultimate shelter and way of life for saintly liberated person. And thus, if one does not engage in my loving devotional service, which is made possible by associating with my devotee, then for all practical purpose, one possesses no effective means for escaping from material existence. My dear Uddhava, O beloved of the Yadu dynasty, because you are my servant, well-wisher and friend, I shall now speak to you the most confidential knowledge. Please hear as I explain these great mysteries to you. Thus end the purport of the humble servant of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedant Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 11th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled the symptom of conditioned and liberated living entity. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Thank you.